All praise belongs to Allah. Allah will thank you. We thank you. We praise you. We seek your forgiveness. We seek refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the evil of our very self and from the consequences of our evil deed. Whosoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides, no one will misguide you. And whosoever Allah has misguided, no one will guide you. And I bear witness that there is no God deserve to be worshipped but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I bear witness that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is his prophet and his messenger. In today's khutbah, inshallah, very briefly, it is a continuation of the khutbah we did like 2 weeks ago about the Prophet Ayub. We call it in Arabic Ayub alayhi salam. That day we gave the biography of Sayyidina Ayub, his lineage, background, where he's from, his father, and his mother. Actually, his mother was the daughter of Sayyidina Lut alayhi salam. So he from a very nice family. And his wife too was from the lineage of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. We are not going to repeat the same khutbah back, but for the benefit of those who are not here, Sayyidina, Ayub, the Prophet Ayub, he suffered a little bit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested him. I don't call it suffer. I take that word back. But it is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He started his life very wealthy, healthy. He got everything he might be looking for under the sun. But when Allah ready to test him, Allah started with his children. One day he and his wife went out. The children, so Riwayah say they were 14, 7 boys and 7 girls. By the time he came back, the roof fell on them and all of them died. That was the first test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Secondly, the money he had, the land he had, the cattle, like a cow, sheep that he had, fire catch the bush somewhere, and then all his sheep, everything got killed. So he never had no money no more. As if that was not enough for Allah. Allah was still testing him. And then thirdly, Allah had tested his health. That was the most difficult one. Some narrations say that the sickness reached to a point he was only able to talk. His tongue and his heart was beating. So technically his whole entire body was collapsed. It started with a skin disease. We don't want to go into that detail. So he got sick and he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah, I don't have no problem. Whatever you're doing to me, I will humbly accept it. But please do not take my tongue from me. So I will be praising you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I should have a life in me. If I have a life in me, if you want to take my life, you can take that. But please allow me to be able to talk so I can be able to praise you all the time. That is what we talk. And then we talk briefly the role his wife, his beloved wife, played when he was sick. To the point the woman was pushed to the wall, to the point that the woman said, for God's sake, you are the prophet of Allah. And look at our situation. Our children, all of them dead. Our money is no more. And then look at your situation. why you can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to kill you or to improve our life. He said that, honey, how long we've been together enjoying? We have everything. She said, oh, 60 years, everything was fine. So he said, Allah was giving, and you did not complain. So now, situation flipped over, here you are complaining. I'm ashamed, it's not haram. Then when someone is sick, you should make dua, or you should take medicine to get cured. But Sayyidina Ayub's email telling him that, he said, I'm ashamed in front of Allah that you'll be running to him. Allah, oh, look at me, I'm sick, I got headache. I don't want to do that. So I will leave everything to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I am not going to go to Allah and tell him, please cure me. But when she was pushed against the wall, there were no means of food. The little job she used to go, people started complaining, oh, this is the woman that come here to come work. Her husband sick. They kicked her husband out of the city. They are laying down in the bank, somewhere around the river, there where they live. If she come here, she might bring the disease to us. So everybody in the town, in the chiefdom, refused to give her anything to do. And then she was pushed to be selling her hair. She cut her hair and then, sell it and then buy food with it and can give to the Prophet. And then, in short, when she brought the food, her husband said he said that, well, where you get money to buy the food? She said, oh yes, I cut my hair. She moved her hair tie, all her hair is gone. That's the hair she was selling, because in our Sharia it's not allowed, but those days probably it used to happen at that time. So when Sayyidina Ayub saw that, as gentleman, as a responsible man, you can be suffering. I said it that time, but I'm saying it again. If I'm suffering right now, I don't have nothing on my account, so long I will have a smile on my face, I'm fine. But if my wife and my children are suffering, that is too much for us. So that's the time Sayyidina Ayub raised his hand and he asked Allah, Allah, please, this sickness is get to me. And you are the most merciful person. That's all it was. He was very polite. He did not complain. He didn't do anything. So that's generally, for those who were not here, that is exactly what happened. It's a long story. But our khutbah today, we're just talking about lesson we learn. What is the lesson that we learn from this story of Sayyidina Ayub alayhi salam? There must be a lesson we learn. The last time we started talking about it, but the time did not allow us. So the first lesson we learned, to be a role model for a mankind, or to be a role model in general, you must undergo element of suffering and pain. You should never become a role model unless you go through some kind of trial and tribulation. If you want to be a role model, psychologically, you should be prepared to undergo any difficulty because you want to be a role model. And we all know, starting from Adam alayhi salam, all the prophets, majority of them went under a series of trials. But some of them, their trial was higher than it was more than some other prophets. Sayyidina Nuh, he suffered similar trial to the point that, can you imagine all the years, almost like 1,000 years you were making dawah, only 50 people converted to Islam. Those days people used to live longer. And Sayyidina Yunus, he was preaching all over, talking to people, preaching everywhere. to the point that he got frustrated. Nobody joining Islam. So he got frustrated, and then without getting permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he decided to leave the town and go to another place. And we all know that story. Then when he decided to go in the canoe capsized, and then, and then that's a long story. We don't want to go there because that's not part of our khutbah. But what I'm trying to say in general, we, be it a prophet or regular human being, if you want to be a role model, you want to be a good leader, you want to be an imam, you want to be a Muslim leader, you want to be a good person, even good family head, you should know that you will go through trial. It can be family problem, it can be financial problem, it can be anything. All that is the test for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that will take us to the lesson number 2. The lesson number 2, if things get difficult on you, you're going through some difficulty, don't think that Allah is mad with you. Even our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he went under some difficulty to the point that he started wondering, is it Allah forsake me or Allah is mad with me? Until Allah sent the Jibril with a message telling him, Ma wadda'aka rabbuka wa ma khala. Allah did not forsake you. Allah is not mad with you. But that is the nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is exactly what he did to the Prophet before you. And that's the same thing you're going through. If the whole entire people of Mecca, nobody is selling to you, nobody is selling to your followers, nobody want to talk to you, nobody even want to deal with you, that is the normal something. When Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was pushed against the wall, Allah gave him an order to migrate from Mecca to Medina. Having said that, we have come to the first break. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Quran al-Kareem wa nafa'ani wa iyyakum bima fihi min al-ayat wa dhikr hakim. Aqulu ma sami'tum wa astaghfirullaha li wa lakum wa li sa'iril muslimina wal muslimat min kulli dhanb fastaghfiruhu innahu huwal ghafurur rahim. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salatu wa salam ala nabiyhi al-Mustafa. Another lesson we learn from the story of Ayub, Prophet Ayub alayhi salam, that whatever the situation, the testing of Allah, everything is now with calamity. It might be a difficult like what he was going through. So testing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes as a form of wealth. Allah will test you with a lot of money. That's a test. That is another test. Allah want to know if you are grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah make you millionaire, Allah want to know if you can able to